just to set up the thought processing and the thinking in your mind, whichever way you think about it, we talk about past, we talk about present, and we talk about future. We've had many deep conversations on this level. The question arises from an inside. I mean, we've had a lovely example of being able to heal somebody whose bone was showing, and the next thing you know, you look at it, there's no issues there at all. Perception, imagination being the past, imagination being the future. The past bringing us depressions, if it's negative, and the future bringing us anxieties, if it's negative. So we've got all this in our mind. This leads us to conversation. A few weeks ago, we spoke about celestial light. So the celestial light context was, if I am a celestial light, each and every one of us has an equal celestial light. We all have an equal understanding of each other. We're on the same level. We haven't yet found that sheer ability within ourselves fully yet, the capability, I suppose you could say. And a part of the journey could be about the fact that we've chosen this life. So the deep question comes in, is if we've chosen the life and we go down the concept of fate, kismet, which is, as we said, fate, how much of our life could be pre-planned? I'm talking about maybe a celestial pre-planning. How much of, if at all, by the way, and how much of a life could be changeable by our actions? Again, if at all. Our actions, activity. How much of it was pre-planned and how much of it was spontaneous in the moment? If at all, how do these actions affect our journey in this current life? In a principle, if I can give you an example, if we were to believe that our life is predestined, we understand where we've gone, where we're coming from, where we're coming to. We don't understand that, because we evolve as we go through. But as a celestial light selected this life, and we've gone through this concept, is there anything that we could actually do at all to make a change? It's to change its trajectory. Or was everything that we're supposed to be doing fully pre-planned? It's just an open conversation. Whether we believe in afterlife, eternal life, flux of changing energetic fields, or whether we believe that this is it, end of life, at the end of this principle, and there's no such thing as ghosts, there's no such thing as a spiritual realm, and there's no such thing as eternal light, and should I say, progresses of your journeys. So whichever is the truth, the open platform, I ask yourself, none are right and none are wrong. I just want it in a very humble, warm environment, in an open, safe space for all of us to just share our thoughts. And I've got no idea why I've got Trina coming up in my head who might want to share something. I've got no understanding, Trina. So in your own time. My question is something very specific. What if we could change our trajectory? Is life just about the material wealth of life? Is there something to do with our future that we should contemplate? Think about serving others, do upon others than what I would have done on myself. Sharing, tithing, seva, zakat, all these elements. So if it's just this life, what has all that got to do with anything? Does that make sense? Any thoughts? Whoever go first? I think Trina.
Okay, so my thought is, yes, I do believe that our life is planned out for us. But I also believe we also have self-will, and we can branch out from that life that was set up for us. And for instance, if you've had enough of this life and you really do cop out and you stop your life, you will just have to redo your whole life again, because you're there to actually learn something. So if you cop out, don't, because you've got to redo it all over again, and all the heartbreak and all the stresses and strains that you've actually got to learn about, you have to do it all over again. So don't cop out. And I also believe to try and be the best person that you can be, in the way of doing unto others as you would be done unto, and being kind. I mean, there's quite a bit about being kind at the moment, and
I love
people
it.
aren't kind. You know,
Thank
they
you.
like to bitch about people, and that's not nice.
No, I respect that fully. I mean, this week I had it sits beautifully what you just said there. I was speaking to, I had a guest who was on the Empower Hour, and his name was Andre. If anybody got the time to see him, Andre Saxman Brown. Yep, that's what his handle is. But he's an awesome singer and saxophone player. Now, he was just talking about, he's a devout Christian, and he came across an individual who met him at an event that he was delivering at. And the person was, he said, I don't believe in God, I am an atheist. And he said, that's wonderful, brilliant. And he goes, well, what do you believe then at all? And he goes, well, I don't believe in that. And then he quoted the Bible. This is the bit that Andre went, oh my God. He literally quoted it unto himself. You know, he's literally said, treat thy neighbor, treat others as you would like to be treated unto self, right? And there's nobody who walks around with the words UN in their conversation, unless the biblical conversation, right? So it was quite interesting. He had this conversation, and then he said, I don't believe in God, but I just believe in this. And he said, okay, that's lovely. And then he said, afterwards, he realized, he goes, that was just a direct quote of Bible. And he said specifically which chapter. And he was like, I get that, I understand that. So we can even debate the conversation of law of attraction. Isn't that just removing the word God from a prayer? Lovely conversation here. So that's what stimulated this thought. Please, anybody else? Who's next?
I'm a great believer in that you decide how your life is going to be before you land here. So we're all celestial beings. We've decided, prior to getting how our life is going to be. And then that is then switched off so that we can live and learn. However, whilst that is amazing, there is another aspect, which is I've decided how my life is going to be, and I've pictured it and so on and so forth. I can't picture everybody else's life. How is that going to be and how it's going to impact mine? So whilst I may have this trajectory of, yes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best self-mastery coach in the world and so on and so forth, I don't actually know Rav's life and Yoko's and Gurnham's and anybody else's, because all of that is going to have an impact on whether or not I'm going to be the best. In my mind, I may be the best, but actually in reality, because other people have projected their lives and the way they want to be, that's also then going to have an impact on what I'm trying to achieve and where I'm trying to get to, what I'm trying to attain.
Love it. Thank you. Great point. Dill.
Hi. So it's interesting you say that. In our sort of culture, that sometimes that's used as a cop-out in that, oh, it's all destined. And in sort of Indian culture, they say, Jeda aaya unne jana hai. Whoever's born will die. And in the Western culture, the only two things that are certain in life are death and taxes. They've all got it. But, you know, Kismet and destiny and everything be written is sometimes used as a cop-out. Because, yes, you get tested in life. And that's where you're tested the hardest. That's probably where you're going to learn a lesson that's going to impact you the most. And okay, it's easy when you're in the thick of the moment. It's easy to wish I didn't get myself into this, or wish it was easier. But once you go through that barrier, that's when you learn your lesson, and you learn your, maybe it's more than a lesson. Maybe there's a learning there. And it's always easier to see other people's lives as better than your own. You don't really know what struggles they're facing. They're just better at hiding it than you are, or you can't see it.
Absolutely spot on. What a lovely version of the world as well. And I'm just going to interject in there. We talk about the Sikh faith, if I may, who says that you're basically going to leave it all here. Okay. So this is now we're talking a little bit about attachments and stuff, as opposed to what we're talking about. But you're going to leave it all here. But isn't the bigger question, I'm going to leave it all here. What am I going to leave? That's another thought to put in your mind. It's more about what am I going to leave, as opposed to I'm going to leave it all here, which is quite dismissive and self-led, dismissive and resigning, isn't it?
Yeah, Sukhi, thanks for giving me the opportunity to have a chat about this. So I think there were many topics that you touched upon. There's an element of consciousness and how does consciousness actually occur in life, ethics and religiousness, and generally trying to improve your life as well. From the point of view of consciousness, like I'm a medic, so I understand that there's different levels of consciousness, and you can kind of test that. And when you're, if you're half asleep or you're just waking up, or a rabbit's level of awareness to its surroundings compared to our own level of awareness to its surroundings. But to say that the universe is conscious, I think is a tough step for most scientists to be able to take, rather than say that there is consciousness within the universe. But the one thing that makes me feel very humble when it comes to being alive is that I understand how stars evolve, how the universe has evolved, and how through supernovas, where there's just this massive explosion of stars, little particles kind of land or kind of grow in separate areas of the universe, and then we become part of stardust, essentially, or we are all stardust. And I really like the idea that essentially the heme that is in our blood, the iron that is in our blood, came from a far off star somewhere millions and millions of years ago. I like that. It makes me feel humble. I can understand that for many people, they might not want to believe in something like this. And, essentially, I respect that kind of view as well. But when it comes to religiousness clashing with people trying to live their lives, I think that's when clinicians should kind of step in and try and help people discern the difference between kind of the way that they've been brought up and the way that evidence-based information can help them live a more healthier life.
I love it. Thank you. That's a very good, and it's a safe space of opening the conversation for everybody to have their view on this. It's amazing. Ravinder, can we have Rav?
Yeah, so I guess throughout my life, I've always contemplated this. Part of me feels, this is what brought me to the Sangha that I have. You, Sukhi, as well, like the whole, so touching on the bits of what I guess Manjeet and other people have said is, yeah, I think we come and there is I believe there's a path already set for us, but this path is got some structure within it, some rules that we kind of don't know and don't need to know. So things are fluid, but they're within this there's rules, right? So if X happens, then Y will happen. If Y happens, then so there's always a plan, but it's kind of changeable. Having said that, I mean, I'm not even going to pretend I understand it. And from my experience, it is an experience. So for example, the flow state that some of us can go into where everything just seems to be flowing and is perfect, it's an experience. But for someone to explain what flow state is, and you can't say it in words. And I think this conversation is actually quite difficult to, you can't, it's not something the intellect can actually describe. My last point, based on what we're meant to learn, is I think we all live with certain worldviews. Some of us are in a worldview of the world being a dangerous place, so a threatening place. And then we have a second worldview where it's about identity, and this is about the strongest survive. So, and then the third, which I feel is more the spiritual one, where there's a oneness and life is happening for us and not just to us. Each, depending on which worldview you have, you're going to have a different experience of living. And my personal opinion is, whatever happens in life, it's our emotional state and our worldview and our mood that dictates how successful, I guess, we feel. Like, for example, the clouds have just now become cloudy. Now, part of me is actually enjoying that I've got the heat, there's going to be humidity, and I just love that. Whereas someone else is probably looking out there going, oh my God, it's got worse, you know, it's humid, and I don't like feeling humid. And that's two different experiences. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Rav. Ranjit, I think you want to say that, and then we'll come to V afterwards.
I've been listening to the quite a few podcasts this week. I'm not really a big podcast type of person, but the Rich Roll, I've been hearing him for a while anyway, but the interview you had with Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist, about how you understand the brain a lot more, and how the brain and spirituality are a lot more linked than people realize. And I think another podcast that was mentioned was with Russell Brand, who's gone through the 12-step process of after he was alcoholism and drug addiction, stuff like that, and how he started off as being a the least spiritual person around, almost proclaimed as an atheist, to actually now becoming more spiritual, because he's understanding the way his brain works, the 12-step process actually of addiction and how to get over it is very much linked to spirituality. But one thing that really stood out was the fact that they say most people look at a mountain or they look at a landscape and say, wow, it looks really beautiful. But they don't understand the energy that's gone into that creation in the first place. That's really took me aback a bit, thinking, wow, the amount of power, energy and force that went into a mountain or the forests and the oceans that have been created in this planet. Surely we should find that kind of connection with our spirituality, and the energy from that would work with us in the long run. So it's just a few things I've noticed from or observed in the last few days, listening to various people and their views on the planet, and how it links the science and the spirituality are a lot more aligned than people realize.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you everyone for sharing your knowledge. It's been really interesting, and for me, right now I would say I'm in between science and spirituality, and actually I would say spirituality is a science. So when I was about 20 years ago, when I spent a lot of about all my 20s in India, most of my time in India with yogis, and these were some of the questions I really asked of myself. What am I? Why am I here? And I think to sort of from my point of view, Sukhi, that are we lights? Do we have control of our destiny? I would say 100% we choose our life. If you look at an ant, and you try and step on the ant, this was a yogi said this to me, that you try and step on an ant, the ant tries to run for its life. It tries to save its life. The reason for that is because it chose this life to fulfill its karmic duty. Now, for me, I say 30% is what we inherit from a previous, or however you want to say, life, or if you want to say in this life, we inherit 30% of what we're given, the hand we're dealt with. The 70% is what we do with it. It's so important what we do with it. So in yoga, they come with a term called bhagya and karma. I know the word karma is thrown around a lot, but the actual word karma actually there's a meaning behind it in terms of bhagya means your previous account. Bhagya means where you stopped your evolution journey. And karma is what you do with that in this life. So I'll give you an example. If I have no knowledge of it and I have no understanding of, say, I shouldn't really kill ants. Why am I picking on ants today? I don't know. Maybe it's a wrong day, but karma, that's it. So if I've intentionally gone and stepped on ants, that is me making bad karma. Where I've stepped on an ant, not realizing, that I would say is that ant's karma to go that way. And it goes in a bit, it's interesting the way how we look at things and stuff. For me, I would say we do have choices, and I loved what some of the stuff I heard, that for me, it's how I respond, or do I react? When I react, I'm in a state of ego. When I'm in a state of ego, I'm not teachable. I'm like the sun, which is always present, but there's clouds always covering the sun. I have to move those clouds for the sun to shine. And for me, it's like, when I'm in a state of ego, I can't learn. And with myself, freeing myself in the situation, I know in NLP and psychology, they use this, that is to pull yourself out the situation and look at it from different perspectives. When I can consciously look at it and gain awareness of it, then I'm evolving. And for me, that's where I look. Okay, where am I harming someone? Am I harming myself in this situation by being more angry, by being judgmental? And for me, I strongly say that, studying scriptures from a young age and looking at the great masters and even looking at science, and I love science and I love spirituality. And I would say that, now I've lost my train of thought, but I would say that for me, it's an opportunity to grow when you realize what you're truly here to do. I realize what makes me consciously different from any other animal. And it's asking those questions. Why are we human? Why do we have neocortex? Why do we have logical thinking compared to animals, which are more survival based? And the reason for it, from my understanding, my perspective, is to benefit myself. Not only to benefit myself, but to benefit society as a whole. But yeah, that's my understanding of it.
Thank you very much. If I can just add something in there before I pass on to Jitendra. When I spoke about the celestial light, is the same as your bhaga, same as what we understand in the Asian understanding as bhaga and kismet, for example, in karma. The principle is that the decision and the discussion of this particular life is because we have been given the cortex of thinking, the cognitive thinking, and we're basically in a position where we've got the beta brain to be giving us the learnings in this life. And then possibly is it that when we go back to the light, the celestial light, the stardust, and all the principles we were talking about, that's when we can recoup the information. And let's ask another question of ourselves. Could it be also the fact that we could be out there for what is deemed as a second? And I mean, if we want to go really deep into the context of Brahma is 14.99 billion, 8888 billion years is classified as one day in Brahma. And in accordance with Brahma's life principles is the fact that when Brahma wakes up, this is Lord Brahma, when he wakes up, the universe is created. And when he goes to sleep, the universe is decimated. So we've got so many different angles of conversation here, because that means that could be a one day in the world of some other being, some other way. If you're into this one, do watch Interstellar, and you'll get to see the conversation. It's a Hollywood movie. By no means is it at all connected to this, but it is by understanding the phases of time and light. So back over to Jitendra, if I can.
Yeah, this is interesting, fascinating topic of conversation. My thoughts around it is like things like, it seems like everything in this world is designed to keep us here. Like our wants, our desires mostly seem to be linked about what we want to do here. The brain is one of those things which can trick us based on the beliefs and things that we think we know. So it's always good to, question everything we know. And the other thing that's quite interesting is whichever direction we go into is like a rabbit hole, because you can learn more about those things, whether it's good or bad. It's just like, when I discovered cycling, I just found this new world about cycling, for example. It's just any direction you take your brain in, any belief system you take your brain in, you just uncover more and more and more, right? It's like endless, right? So then it kind of sometimes seems like the spiritual element of it seems to be about the unknown. It seems to be about the things that we don't necessarily know or understand. So is the spirituality side of it just about the questions we don't really know and we can't answer because we just don't know what it is all about, right? And to some context, to some degree, does anyone actually really know what's going on, right? Because we just base it on what we're taught and what we learn and our experience of things and the religious elements, what's been taught down and what we think other people are telling us. But is that really even the case? We don't really know, right? Apart from scriptures that we believe to be the truth kind of thing. And I'm sure there's got elements of the truth in all of them, right? And I think anyone's kind of wrong in that kind of context. It's just like a good example is when Bruce Lee said that if you put the masters of art in a room together, they'll agree on everything. But if you put the students in a room together, they'll disagree on everything, right? So it's a question of does anyone really know what's going on? And I think whatever conclusion we come to is going to be based on what we currently know in our own minds. And the more we learn, the more we really know, we don't really know what's going on. It's like, whoa, this thing's endless. And I think V's been talking about ants because to some degree, I mean, my dad said once, he said that when he goes into central London, he sees underground. And when it was busy, it was like we're like ants just running around. Yeah. And when we look at it at a cosmic level, the way the worlds and the universe rotates and stuff, we can't even see ourselves. So are we just a blip in somebody's imagination or a dream or something? Who knows?
So right. Oh, this is so beautiful. So right. Over to Rav quickly.
It's going to be brief. And yeah. So it's quite a deep conversation. And I kind of just find I'm agreeing with every single thing that's been said because it's so complex. And for me, bring it back to simplicity and actually just dealing with life on a everyday level without over contemplating and thinking about it is just looking at our emotional states really and just noticing where we are emotionally, because there's one thing I'm only going to speak about the Sikh scripture is there's something called hukam, which is also life, and it's also to do with acceptance of what's actually going on right now in this moment. And that takes emotional intelligence or emotional knowing yourself to actually accept what's happening right now. And then I believe then, yeah, your hukam can also, your path can change based upon how you're viewing the situation. So I think coming back to bare bolts is just to know, okay, how do I deal with life? Okay, just let's go to simplicity and just notice the emotional state, the mood that I'm in, and going into acceptance.
Thank you for your version of the world there as well. Chris, over to yourself.
Well, I mean, I've been thinking that, let's say we go into this sort of celestial light. What we're living right now is literally just a blip, isn't it? Do we spend more time in the celestial light than we do as like other forms? So yeah,
I love it.
I'm just thinking, so like literally we are just temporary at the moment, and we will go back into the celestial light for billions and millions of years. So.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Go for it, Manjeet.
Yeah, I was going to sort of like repeat what I said, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, which was, I strongly believe that parallel universes and so on, that we're here doing what we're doing. And actually, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and in another universe, somewhere else, Manjeet is doing something else. And there's another universe and another one. So there's lots of, God help the world, with lots of universes, me running around. But what I'm saying is there is so much more out there that we still do not understand. And I don't think we'll ever really get to the crux of the matter. It's like Rab said, well, who is divine? We don't know who divine is, but we believe in this divine entity. We believe in this divine feminine energy and male energy, but what actually is that? What is energy? Where does it come from? And we have all these questions, and the deeper we dig, the deeper you got to keep digging, because you might find a little bit of nugget, and then it's like, oh, hang on, I need to know more about this. And you keep exploring and you keep exploring. And I think that's what differentiates us as humans from the animal kingdom, is that we keep exploring, we keep digging. We don't stop at that, okay, this is my lot, this is what I need to do. I'm here to procreate and that's it. We take it to the next level. And when we've got there, we want to take it to another level and another level.
I love it. Thank you very much, Manjeet. Over to Gurpreet, Dinsa.
First of all, I mean, what an amazing discussion going on here. So many great ideas, so many things which are like, I'm struggling to grasp as well. So much to learn. So thank you for that. I'm privileged to be part of this. And a couple of things that thoughts came to my mind. So, one thing is fundamentally, which is there in my head is, I'm a Sikh, so learner basically. So I believe in that. Nobody knows everything, so it's all about continuous improvement in any sphere of your life, whatever it is you're trying to do and achieve. So it's always about continuous improvement, and it's not in competition with anybody else. It's just yourself. You're just trying to be a better version of yourself in every sphere of life. And one analogy that came to my mind when we were talking about, how open we are to some of these things. So is that this world is like a free-flowing river, and what we get out of it depends on what we go there with. So if I go with a spoon, I'll get a spoonful of water out of it. If I go with a big drum, I can take a drum full of water, whatever. So we have to prepare ourselves to take the most out of this life, make the most out of this life. So that's what I believe in.
Thank you, Gurpreet. Yeah, back to V.
Thanks, guys, for sharing. I just wanted to quickly say a few things that was passed on to me. I just like to share. I remember a wise monk that I spent time with I spent a lot of time with, and he said the essence of learning is to learn everything and then to unlearn everything. So it was quite deep what he meant on a spiritual context. And yeah, I totally agree with what you guys were saying about parallel universes. That's quite, I know, Sukhi, you touched on the years of Brahma, which was written maybe 5,000 years ago. But if you look at what quantum physics says right now, it backs up that theory, that there is time is irrelative. It's based on what we have here. And going to, I think Manjinder touched on parallel universes. I won't go into it. It's opening a new can of worms, but astrophysicists talk about the string theory and the M theory, that there is multi-dimensional planes, and we exist in multi-planes because of electrons coming in and out of existence, which is interesting. And yeah, then we'll talk about astral travel one day. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tell you now, I really would, well, let's just leave it at that in that conversation.
Yeah,
I will definitely agree with you there. I have a very strong understanding of that in the conversation. So just as a conversation, if you relate back to your 5K, I believe it's even further than that. I think it's 11K plus, and a lot of the data and information that's been tampered with. Without saying too much about that, because that will open up another can of worms, won't it? We don't want to go down to the understandings of the Dwarka and a number of other things that were all evidenced at 7,000 years old. So the principle of what we're trying to talk about is that maybe we understand, just to close that Brahma conversation, maybe we understand physics, our current physics, in a different way. Maybe there is another ancient physics that we don't quite understand. Maybe our trajectory toward it was different. Melting stone, elevating or transporting things with your thoughts. Maybe we don't understand it just yet. And it's just quite logical, isn't it? We're sitting there talking about so much of this astral travel, and I love it. But that'll be another topic there. I'm afraid we have to carry on. We have to slow this one down here. I hope everybody has thoroughly enjoyed themselves. And it's just opening up a little thought process. None of us is trying to be right. All of us are just trying to share our little version of the little world that we've made for ourselves. This is all nest, this cognitive nest in our mind. And actually, I'll leave with a loving conversation. We already understand the key of understanding is God is within us, possibly. The key of understanding is God is within us, possibly. And if that's the case, then our real journey would be to connect inwards or to know ourselves, right? And let's just leave it in another thought. The more, on a quantum basis, by the way, guys, Dr. Bahn, 1981 circa, quoted, the more I think I understand, the further away from the truth I am. Principle of conversation is the law of matter, the law of energetic, Masarai Moto, transference of energy, affecting energetic feelings and healings, and in essence, water. So the more you think on it, the more you've molecularly changed it anyway. And then we throw ourselves into the observer effect. But we can have these discussions another week. Have we enjoyed it, everybody?
Yeah.
Has there been something taken from this?